What is one secret your parents can never know? When I was about 11 or 12, I was going through my pyromaniac stage. One Saturday, I decided I would grab a steel can and fill it with gasoline and head to the woods. Now, this wasn't just your typical old can of SpaghettiOs. This was a 1-gallon bulk-sized can point filled to the brim. I took it to the woods and decided it would be cool just to light it on fire and see what would happen. I lit it, and it caught like I expected and kept burning inside the can. After about 15 minutes I got bored and went to try and put it out. In the process, I knocked the can over, spreading gasoline all over the forest floor, and it erupted in a ball of flame. I quickly ran back to my house to get water, and I come running back with about 5 gallons. By this point the fire had spread tremendously and my efforts were useless. I decided my best bet would be to run inside and play video games. Luckily this spot in the woods was pretty good ways away from my parents' house, so it didn't draw my parents' attention immediately. After about an hour or so, the entire fire department is on scene battling the 3 to 4 acres of forest fire that is roaring. There was a road that runs behind my house, and the fire basically engulfed all of the forest separating my parents' house and this road. This road is notorious for drug dealers and meth houses. While the firefighters are trying to battle the flames, it is discovered that the house closest to the fire is a rather large cookhouse, and cops show up and a huge bust goes down. Naturally, the fire was blamed on them, and my parents just accepted that. It is now 20 years later, and my parents still do not know, nor will they ever know. I can never tell them that my #1 goal as a parent is to handle relationship issues differently than they did. They went through an extremely messy divorce when I was 8, and my only memory of them together is them screaming at each other and my sister and I hiding in our rooms. Then it was 10+ years of them talking shit about each other to us, putting us in the middle of all their arguments and giving us a huggy guilt trip whenever they felt like we were spending more time with the other one than with them. It's been 20 years now, and my mom will still talk shit about my dad and stepmom every once in a while, despite me asking her over and over to stop. I'm happily married, but if I were to ever get divorced, I will never put my daughter in the middle of arguments, speak badly about her father to her, or make her feel guilty for having a relationship with him. It's the #1 thing I learned from my parents, and I think they would be devastated to realize the true effect it has had on me. I was brought up in a pretty religious home. My family had me in theater, choir, youth group, and all kinds of other extracurricular activities to keep me out of trouble, so they trusted me pretty well. One night, I was about 15, my boyfriend at the time had come over to watch movies. The stipulation was that we could lay in the bed and watch the movie, but the door had to be open. After a while, my mom came in to check on us and everything was fine. So she thanked my boyfriend for being a gentleman and shut the door on her way out. Immediately, as if the door shut had triggered some teenage hormone overload, we started making out and fooling around. He slid his hand up my shirt for a bit, but finally having some privacy, I soon directed his hand to mine at their bits. Yay, first, not self-stimulated orgasm. We never got caught, which was considered a major triumph, and we found ways after that to hook up without my parents knowing. It wasn't until a few months later at my youth's purity ball, yes, we signed pledges and wore rings to signify our abstinence for God and marriage point, that my dad delivered this humiliating speech. He told the congregation he was proud of the strong lady I had become, that regardless of having a boyfriend, I stood up to teen peer pressure and hormones, and that he witnessed me deflect an attempt at immoral behavior while watching movies with my boyfriend one night. Apparently, the blinds had been open and my bed faced them from in the house. He happened to be walking in from the garage and caught a peek at me removing my boyfriend's hand from my boob. I was mortified. The secret he must never know: the night I got my first orgasm, he thought I deflected my boyfriend from touching my boobs, when in reality I was actually directing him much further south. When you guys went to Hawaii, I put Milo, cat, down. He was sick, in incredible pain, couldn't eat or drink, couldn't even move to get to the litter box. When you left on vacation, he was too weak to even yowl in pain anymore. I couldn't stand to see that cat in so much pain, and so afraid, so I did the only thing I could do to help him end his life humanely. My parents were 100% against putting down a pet regardless of how much it is suffering. so they'd be beyond mad if they knew this. When we were staying at a friend's place on holiday, my fiance and I accidentally broke her guest bed. Like, one of the legs gave way and the whole thing collapsed. It was an ultra cheap metal frame, and fiance found a meat cleaver and we banged the bejesus out of that bed to get it back into shape. To no avail. I had to ring my friend and confess. Due to the conservative nature of my parents and their firm beliefs, we have allowed them to believe that we are chaste and good and would never actually have sex. You are gross. We haven't lied, but we have certainly been guilty of omission. We are getting married this year, and my friend with the broken bed is a bridesmaid and is working on her speech. This happened in my freshman year of high school, so one of my friends got a hold of some weed, and I haven't tried it before, so we had the stupid idea to smoke it. He came over along with some other friends of mine. The original plan was to go to forest near my house to smoke it, but it was cold, so we didn't want to. One of us wanted to smoke it on my porch, but I disagreed. I forgot how, but we came up with the stupidest idea and hot box in my bathroom. Keep in mind my parents were gonna be home from work in an hour, and if they found out my life would be done. We quickly made a shtai bong out of a Gatorade bottle, then removed everything from my bathroom. We lit up the weed and smoked for like 10 minutes. Once we were done we quickly cleaned up and emptied a whole Axe bottle in the bathroom. My friends being stoned as F left. I went back upstairs to check the bathroom and it smelled like flat out weed. I tried to use every possible thing to get the smell out, but it didn't work. I called my parents. They have the same job, and they said they were 15 minutes away. I knew I was F edition. Now keep in mind my parents are extremely strict and if they caught me, I would be over. This is when I thought of the stupidest thing any sane human would think. Burn my bathroom down. I ended up lighting some towels on fire and trying my hardest to burn the sink area. It ended up catching on fire, but it was slow. I quickly called 911 and 3 minutes later fire department. I see fire trucks out my house. They took care of the fire and my parents came home shocked. Half of my bathroom was charred and the door knocked down. Fire department said it was probably an electrical current from the outlet that burned a towel. I slept that night thinking how stupid I was and what I just did. To this day my parents don't know. My dad was always a heavy drinker. Growing up, it wasn't uncommon for him to get so drunk he'd fall down. In fact, he was banned from several bars for being such an unmanageable drunk. It's not that he would cause trouble or fights. Despite him being a pretty big and intimidating looking guy, he was actually a really nice guy and likable. When he was drinking, he was just annoying and a liability. When he'd get so drunk he'd start falling down, getting hurt, breaking things, and being a burden to the other patrons. So because of this, he drank at home a lot. He would drink large amounts of whiskey, and on some nights he'd wind up falling down when stumbling to the bathroom or the fridge. This was a regular occurrence in my childhood, and over the years, and it kind of became commonplace. I'd usually help him up if I could, and other times I'd let him lie there and just try to make him comfortable, let him pass out, and leave him to it. My mom would usually be in bed, and not hear him fall, but I'd always hear it, regardless of how or where he fell. The sound was almost always the same. Well, one night, when I was staying at home on Christmas break from college, I was laying in bed, and I heard that sound. He had fallen. It was around 2:45 AM. I got up to check on him per usual, and he was lying next to the table on the floor. I went over to help him up. He grunted a little bit, and wasn't helping me help him up at all. He was unusually loose and limp, wasn't speaking coherently and not attempting to help me at all. I figured it was because he was drunker than usual, since I wasn't going to be able to get him back in his chair or even to his feet. I figured I'd make him comfortable and leave him there. So I went over my usual routine, checked his head to make sure he wasn't bleeding or badly injured, hid his whiskey bottle so he wouldn't get up and drink more, and looked to make sure his glasses weren't broken, cleaned them, and put them on the table, turn him on his side just in case he vomited. Surprisingly, he rarely puked. When I took his glasses off he had a strained look on his face and an expression that seemed to stare right through me. I usually ask if he's okay, and I usually get a grumbled yeah or something similar, but all I got this time was a long strained grunt. Again, I figured he was just super drunk, and didn't think much of it. I turned off the TV and went to bed. I woke up 3 hours later to my mom frantically banging on my door. She sounded panicked and blurted out, "I think your dad's dead." I sprinted into the kitchen and found him laying in the exact same spot I had left him. His body was cold to the touch. He wasn't breathing. He had died. When the coroner finally arrived, he estimated the time of death to be around 3 or 4 a.m. Later we learned the death was actually a heart attack. When I look back, I wonder if the small unusual behaviors I noticed but didn't really pay attention were actually side effects of him having a heart attack. His behavior was different than usual, and he was heavily intoxicated. But I can't help but wondering if my dad was dying right in front of me without me noticing. At the time I blamed myself for leaving him there and not investigating further. He died right where I left him. I felt terrible, and I carried that guilt for a long time. I now know it's not my fault, but I still feel guilty from time to time. On the day Dad died, Mom asked me if I had heard him fall that night. My initial guilt and shame lead me to lie and tell her no. I must have slept through it. I feared if I told her all of this, she'd blame me. Of course, I know she wouldn't blame me, but I'm still not sure about some of my family on my dad's side. I know for sure some of them would be disgusted I left him on the floor. Yeah, it sounds effed up, but that's just how it was growing up in my house. I've never told a soul about this, and never plan to, except Reddit I guess, because I'm afraid of people will think of me as the pose who let his dad die. I have 2 stories from college that, if ever found out, my parents would surely kill me. Both of these moments could have severely altered my future and ruined my life. These were 4 to 5 years ago. I will share one for now, and the other, if there is any interest, as these are very long stories. Towards the end of high school I started using some different pills, and this carried into college. Typical stuff like oxycodone, Xanax, Killapins, SP. Anyways, my junior year in college I had a very high tolerance towards Xanax, and one particular night we were going to a pretty big house party in an area of campus I had never been. I didn't know the people hosting the party, and I'd found out about it late, so I was actually 9.5 milligrams of Xanax down at this point. If you don't know, that is an insane amount of Xanax, and for some people could easily cause you to odd. At this time I was a 6 feet 3 inches 280 pounds male with a high tolerance, so I was still functional. We get to the party and I get about 6 beers deep, and at this point I'm wrecked beyond belief. I go into the bathroom to piss, and being the douchebag I was, I looked through the medicine cabinets and drawers of the bathroom. I found a full script of Adderall, which I had never taken before, and some other various paraphernalia I'm going to leave out as they are not important to the story. So once again, being the douchebag I decide all of this is going home with me. I had brought a backpack with me to transport all of my beers to the party, so I put it on. I went around and told all of my friends I was feeling very sick and needed to get home. I'm never one to not hold my alcohol/drugs, so they know something is wrong. So I head to the bathroom and fill my backpack up and splash water on my face and cough a lot to make myself look sick. We then all headed out and started our walk back to our apartment. Not 4 minutes into our walk we are stopped by the police because it was about 1 to 2 a.m. and we were walking down the street of campus and they wanted to make sure the girls were okay. Note, at this point there are 6 of us, and of the 6, 2 of us are 21. I'm 20, and the other 3 are 20 as well. The cop asked us if we were all of age and we all said yes. The 2 people who are 21 offer up their licenses really quick, and that was enough to appease the cop. If he had eyed all of us, I would have gotten a drinking ticket and potentially had my bag searched. Had I been caught, I would have had charges for underage drinking, paraphernalia, a stolen controlled substance, intent to distribute. It was a full script, so a huge amount of Adderall, not to mention I had cellophane. And to top it all off, I was on school property. This would have probably resulted in a short jail sentence and being expelled from my university. So after all of this we are ecstatic, and my friends could not believe what I had done, as I'm not typically this kind of person. We go back to our apartment and the girls go to bed, and it is just us 4 guys left. We start doing mass amounts of Adderall, smoking, weed and drinking. In total we had, I believe, 30 to 40 pills of 30 milligram Adderall. Note, at this time we had all been up since 9 to 10 a.m. and it is now 3 a.m. We continue getting effed up, smoking cigs, watching Entourage episodes and occasionally playing Super Smash Brothers. All of a sudden my girlfriend wakes up and it is 10 AM the next day. We are still partying. Eventually we run out of beers and just keep taking Adderall and doing whatever it is we can find as we are also amped up. None of us had done it before. We were playing with hand sanitizer and fire for a good couple of hours. If you have never done this, while annihilated, I definitely recommend it. Eventually it comes down to just me and my one other friend. We are just chilling in his room doing more Adderall and smoking some cigs while he plays on his electric piano. This is where shit got nuts. Note it is about 10 PM at this point, and we had been awake roughly 36 hours and abusing this Adderall. I started seeing Call of Duty on my friend's TV screen, which is turned off. I don't know how or why, but it was the most insane hallucination I have ever had. I then realize that just about anything I start focusing on is absolutely nuts. My buddy starts seeing odd things as well, and we realize that we are hallucinating from the drugs and sleep deprivation. We spent the next 5 to 6 hours just staring at stuff and walking around outside smoking cigs and looking like retards. Of all of the things we saw, the craziest was staring at this poster. The best way to describe it was colored warfare. It is so hard to really describe it, but I could see bombs going off and gunshots and the breeze in the treetops. After all of that insaneness, my buddy had finally had enough and went to bed. Now he had probably 3 to 4 pills of Adderall to my 10. I tried to go to bed and eventually realized it was never going to happen. I started having an insane panic attack and sweating like crazy. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't calm down. I felt like I was falling and going to die. I have had panic attacks before as I suffer from mental illness, but nothing like this. Nothing could calm me down, and my girlfriend began to worry. I had been up for over 48 hours and I finally decided to call the school toxicology line. I told them everything I had taken to the T and they advised me to immediately go to the hospital. I knew that I did, that my parents would surely catch me as I was on their insurance. So I tried my best to just deal with it and sleep. At about 10 AM I finally gave up and had my GF take me to the ER. This was the worst experience of my life. I had to wait almost 3 hours before seeing a doctor, all the while feeling like I could die at any moment. I felt like everything was sucking air out of me and I couldn't breathe. They eventually let me sit a room alone so I could try to calm down, while repeatedly asking me if I tried to kill myself because of the amount of drugs I had taken. Eventually I was seen by a doctor and he was shocked at the fact I was awake. He told me no matter how much Adderall I took, there is no way it could offset that much Xanax. I tried to explain that I had never done Adderall and I had done Xanax multiple times, but he still couldn't understand why I was awake. After running some tests, they gave me a shot of something and sent me on my way. I got home and slept for over 24 hours straight and woke up feeling like I was dead. I called my dad and told him I had a stomach problem, which he believed, and I got 100% away with it all. I have not done a prescription drug since that awful day.